You know that Gerald Gine is an important theorist, and one important thing that Gerald Gine has done is to provide very comprehensive terminology which helps us to talk about all narratives. And you know that there was one argument in favor of structuralism, that structuralism talks about narratives, and these narratives probably reflect the functioning of human mind. But this argument was not considered convincing by everyone. But the other argument in favor of structuralist criticism was that it provides a wonderful opportunity to talk about narratives, and it has approached narratives with an amount of rigor. And what is their basic premise? That if we are certain about the nature of a narrative, what exactly is a narrative, then we can also have some vocabulary, some specialized vocabulary, some jargon, some terminology, which can probably capture different formal aspects of that narrative. So from here, we come to 2 points. One, what exactly is a narrative? And you know that since structuralist study of narratives, there is now almost a consensus that we have a narrative, and narrative can be not only something which is written, but that is certainly a definition of novel, because novel is something which is there in the form of words, that is something which is written. And there is also that element of causality, that means a kind of causal connection is there between incidents in a novel. But as far as this word narrative is concerned, you can see narrative cuts across different forms of stories. And so you can see narrative in a film, you can see narrative in fiction, you can see element of narratives in a short story, and you can also see elements of narrative in those gossip sessions which the present company does not indulge in, right? So here we are, even history or some texts of history can work like narratives. You can have a narrative in the form of words, and you can also have a narrative in the form of pictures and in the form of films. So that is where we are. Narrative is something which is fairly defined. Now from here we move to that other aspect, that narratology talks about the entire system of rules which probably capture all formal aspects of a narrative. So a lot of work was done in this direction, work beginning with Vladimir Prop, and they all talked about certain universal elements by dividing a narrative into certain units. But we saw that there is another kind of tension at work in structuralist theory. And the tension is that, okay, we can talk about some universal rules, but what about the specific work? What about an individual work? What about a novel written by James Joyce, a novel written by Somerset Maugham, a film made by Christopher Nolan? Because this is something which is unique. This is something which is specific. This is something which is very, very individual. It has some individual features. So this tension, talking about a whole system of rules which explains all narratives, and then looking at one particular narrative for its specific character. This was the dichotomy. This was the tension in structuralist criticism. Bars tried to resolve this tension, and he tried to mock the efforts of many of his predecessors who talked about all those universal rules. And Barth gives the example of a grain and how certain aesthetics can show you the entire world in that little grain. So that is Barth's way of putting things. That is Barth's way of making fun of those efforts where universal rules were sought. in those narratives. And if we further use structuralist narratology or certain points from structuralist theory, we say that this entire effort was directed in favor of long. That means long of narrative, a grammar of narratives. Barth differed from that approach, and the result is a brilliant study of Saracen, that is a story by Balzac. And this story is analyzed comprehensively. It is not a kind of approach which is reductive, but rather it is very expensive. And here, maybe a minute on the kind of criticism that you usually see. Usually in standard journals, right, which publish criticism on fiction, which publish criticism on poetry, you'll see that an article is usually of about say 20 pages or so. An interesting thing is whether it is an article written on a novel or on a short poem. Usually the length is the same. So this means that criticism of fiction tends to be a bit reductive, and criticism of a poem tends to be a bit expensive. That means it expands the matter. We are reading a poem and we expand that entire thing. Maybe certain words, maybe certain sound, maybe certain devices. So it tends to be expensive. But a whole novel and an article on that novel, it also has about 20 or so pages. So that means here criticism tends to be reductive. Barth writes a book of 200 pages on Balzac's novel Saracen. Now, when Barth writes this book, he also showed one particular approach. And what was important for him, he put the reader also at the center of his whole effort. And this reader, with the help of those 5 codes that Barth identified in Balzac's work, can indulge himself. So that was Barth, where he was very much conscious of those efforts where criticism of fiction could be reductive, where all narratives could be reduced to certain rules. And so he was conscious of this fact. He was also conscious of the limitations of that method, and hence his focus on an individual work. Gerald Gine is also similar in certain respects to Barth, because he is also talking about an individual work, right? And he is also very modest about his efforts. He says that, okay, I am talking about certain, say, aspects of rhetoric in this work, and maybe this will be forgotten later. Maybe my work will be superseded later. And that's why, because of his modest ambition, because of his very humble stance, he belongs to that tradition of structuralist writers who you can brand low structuralists, in line with Roth and in line even with Ferdinand de Saussure. On the other hand, you have people like Roland Barthes, Jacques Lacan, Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida. They all are star performers, and their work also can be read for its own sake. So another point of distinction, yesterday Munira asked this question, is that this lot, that means Gerald Gine, also makes a fine distinction between creative works and critical works. Whereas Barth's writing can be considered creative work also. So Barth can be read not for the sake of understanding another work, but for its own sake. And so is the case with Michel Foucault and others. So when we read Gerald Gine, we see that he starts with very modest aims. And one very important thing about Gerald Gine is that he has talked about one important work, and he has tried to evolve his terminology with the help of that single work. But it does not mean that he was not familiar with other works, and here also lies his advantage. So, first of all, something about his sources, something about his reading. Usually, French writers or French critics have not been as well versed in Anglo-American tradition as probably many Anglo-American critics would expect them to be. But this is not the case with Gerald Ginet. He is familiar with the entire tradition of novel writing in Anglo-American world. He is familiar with this whole tradition, beginning with say Richardson and Daniel Defoe, and coming to his times. And another important thing is, and this is important, that he was also familiar with all those works, all those seminal works which were written on fiction. Now, what are some of those seminal works which have tried to talk about the art and craft of fiction? There are many, but we can mention a few. Say, Clinch Brooks had written a book titled Understanding Fiction. And you know that Brooks was an important new critic. That means belonging to that school which believed in the idea of close reading. But since new criticism was especially focused on short poems, and hence Brooks' work on poetry became more famous. But he has written this work, Understanding Fiction, also. Then you also have many of those treatment. In the last session, you know that Gerald Ginet made a distinction. Rather, we discussed that how he made a distinction between histoire and recit, which corresponds to a distinction between story and plot, which corresponds to a distinction between fabula and sujet, that is Russian term. And we discussed plot in terms of arrangement of some episodes, and we discuss in terms of the what element, that means something how it happens in a sequence. So you say what is the story of something, it is not the same question as what is the plot of this particular thing. So plot you'll find in different stories, and the basic story may remain the same. And here you can also relate this distinction to two important concepts in grammar, and one is deep structure and one is surface structure. These are the terms which we learned from Chomsky. So deep structure, that means that basic structure, that is the story element. But surface structure, that means how that story appears, that is the part of plot. So you will see that surface structure in number of modern tales, modern stories which have taken their inspiration from Mahabharata. That is the story. And similarly, that story of revenge, it is the story, it is the deep structure, but its surface structure, you can see Lion King, you can see Hamlet, and you can see possibly Heather, you can see many other adaptations. So that is the distinction between deep structure and surface structure. And those of you who have studied language, ELT, you know that Chomsky talked about, or rather he gave that idea of transformational generative grammar. And in that transformational generative grammar, we make a tree, and the tree starts with a kernel, or rather, and then it starts growing. So a basic structure, A basic sentence structure, a kernel, a deep structure has different realizations, and they probably can be seen in their vast spread. So deep structure and surface structure. Surface structure plot, deep structure story, right? Now we come to the heart of Gerald Genet's work, and that is the work titled Narrative Discourse. Narrative discourse. If we see narrative discourse, there Gerald Genet talks about narratives in terms of many categories. And what are those important categories which are further subdivided? One important category is what exactly is the order that is followed in a narrative. What exactly is the order? That means when something comes and when something is followed by something, that is the order. Order of episodes, you can say, order of incidents. And here a text, a narrative text distributes anachronies. Anachrony, and now we learn lots of terms. Anachrony. Anachrony. Anachrony is a kind of episode which is inserted in the past, in the future, in the present, wherever. A text consists of all these anachronies. So order is one important category. Second important category is, not in the same order, of course, another important category is duration. Duration. Duration means what exactly is the time that is taken in narrating a particular incident or a particular event, or even a whole novel, that is duration. So one important level is order, the other important level is duration. I'll come back to these two things. And the third important order is frequency. Frequency. Frequency means how many times is something described. Frequency of those episodes or those appearances or those details, that is frequency. And another important category is mood. 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 How is something described? How is something described? And here you can say some traditional ways of storytelling, some terms which have been in use earlier, they have been refined by Gerald Genet. So for example, the term point of view was used, but point of view probably did not capture everything, and hence Genet's more refined category. So order, duration, frequency, mood, and the fifth important element is voice. Voice. That means who is speaking, that thing. So if we see these five categories and we see the terminology that Gerald Genet gives to talk about these five categories, then we learn a lot about the form of a narrative. Now this entire description of terminology is applicable to novels and to also other narratives which are based on stories. So that means this becomes important for the analysis of films as well, for the analysis of television serials as well. So Gerald Genet was talking about a novel, and he had one frame of reference, and that frame of reference was Marcel Proust's work, Remembrance of Things Past. but the categories that are discovered by him, they are equally applicable to all possible texts, sometimes in a comprehensive manner and sometimes in a more limited way. But nevertheless, they are important for students of fiction, for students of films, and for those research scholars who want to write something, produce something, and sometimes they feel that they do not have enough to say. Because these terms, and this is important, because these terms are also tools for thinking. When you see a term, it is also a kind of tool for thinking. So when you are learning these terms from theory, you are also carrying a toolbox with you. You read a novel, and with the help of that toolbox, you can apply a term and you can possibly see something in that novel with greater clarity. So let me just discuss something which is simple here. We are not following the same order. See, order, duration, frequency, mood of voice. Let me say start discussing something which is simpler to understand, and from simpler we'll move to more complex categories. So first of all, let us talk about duration. And here it relates to the aspect of time in fiction. How is time treated in fiction? And here you can say that a novel can talk about 5,000 years of history. A novel can talk about 100 years. But obviously those 100 years have to be planned, how they have to be put in the form of a narrative. Everything that happens in those 100 years cannot be described, cannot be presented. And so that means duration becomes important. Now, when you see novels, you see that duration can be further subdivided into something which enhances the speed and something which stops the speed. In other words, we are saying that something can accelerate and something can decelerate. Let us learn two words from the world of automobile. You say that, oh, its accelerator is working fine. When you use accelerator or when you press accelerator, that means you enhance the speed, right? Accelerator. So acceleration is also a method used in narratives. So let us see what are different aspects of acceleration. One important method how we use acceleration is summarizing something, and the other is not describing something but rather leaving that behind, not eliding that. In other words, this is called ellipsis. So ellipsis and summary, these are two ways of using accelerator in fiction or in films. Now let us see an example. When we say that in a movie, often you see 20 years later. 20 years later. Now 20 years later in a film, it means here the device of acceleration is used. And it also means that here it is not exactly summary, rather it is a case of ellipsis. Right? And here this ellipsis is made obvious 20 years later. On the other hand, and we'll come back to this part, ellipsis. We can also see ellipsis in different ways. Let me just give the example from Kuratila and Haidar's famous novel Aag Ka Darya, which talks about 5,000 years of Indian history. It is set during the Mauryan period, that means during the Buddhist period in the first scene, and gradually you see that the novel comes to the present, that is a decade after the independence of India. But there are some specific periods which are discussed in some detail and others are simply elided, left over. So the Mauryan period, and after that you immediately jump to another important period, and that is the period of Delhi Sultanate. And then you move to another period, entire Mughal period is elided, left behind, and you come to the British period. And then after that, you come to the period after the independence of India. So that is use of ellipsis. To give you one or two more examples. In the movie Demolition Man, those of you who have seen this, they can follow it. But even if you have not seen, I'm describing something and you can follow. It is set in Los Angeles at a later period. That means in 21st century. And what happens here? There is this character of Sylvester Stallone who is serving a term. And there is another criminal who is also serving a term. Sylvester Stallone was a cop. Now, what happens is that this particular period, Los Angeles is, in this particular period, Los Angeles is shown to be very, very peaceful place, very serene place. So when suddenly a criminal appears who uses certain methods with which people in this serene land are not familiar, people have no clue what to do. What to do? Right? Now they revive that old cop who was serving term, and he is taken from that, say, prison, and then you see that the two, the hero and the villain, they are face to face. So in this film actually you see 40 years of time is just elided over. 40 years. So that is an example of ellipsis. I gave you the example from Aag Ka Darya, and you also have the example from this film Demolition Man. Let us have one interesting example, if I recall that. Say 2001 Space Odyssey. The movie begins in prehistoric times. Prehistoric times. And you know that in that prehistoric times, you see only animals. And it shows many of those apes. They are fighting. Now one ape acts clever. He gets hold of one very big bone, one big bone, femur. And that bone actually works like a stick. So suddenly he is empowered. He has a weapon which others do not have, and he starts beating those other apes with that bone. Now the situation is very similar that you see often. You're all alone walking on the road and you have so many, say, stray dogs, you feel scared. But if you have a stick in your hands, suddenly you are empowered. And so is the case in this scene. And he is so ecstatic to see that bone. Oh, I have become powerful. And he is happy. And he just, say, in his happiness, he throws the bone in the air. And then that bone actually takes the form of, I say, an aeroplane. That means Here, that was an example of technology that born, that kind of primitive technology that was used by that ape. And here, this primitive technology has taken the form of advanced technology. But in one single shot, the director has achieved something, and he has also skipped many centuries. This is also an example of ellipsis. Summary, on the other hand, I hope you understand ellipsis. And in fiction, we often see ellipsis. Often ellipsis is marked by some kind of break. If you read Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, you see Stephen Dedalus at the very beginning. He is an infant. He is an infant. But how is ellipsis used here? Anyone from my MA second semester students, can you just explain the concept of ellipsis with reference to this example from Portrait? Ariba is there?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Yes, Ariba, can you just explain quickly?
Yes, sir. The novel begins. We see that the protagonist is a little baby. He's being taken care of by his parents. He's put in bed. He does all kind of things that babies do. Like he's being pampered and everything. And the next section of the novel, we see that he's in school. So the timeline is broken, and the years between infancy and say a time when a boy can go to school in a hostel. So that is an ellipse, an example of ellipse.
Wonderful, Ariba. So you see that from infancy to school going age and then to college, and in between you have the time period which is just elided over, which is just skipped, and that is an example of ellipsis. So ellipsis is a very common device. In the novel Scarlet Letter, you see first 4 chapters, and then you see that Pearl has grown. Pearl is about 7 or something. So in that novel also, so ellipsis is a device which is always used. On the other hand, summary is also a form of acceleration. When you say that summary is a form of acceleration, then we are saying that maybe in a matter of just a few sentences, a writer can describe a long period. And so if I write sentences like this, that from Ashoka's period to the Mughal period, there were a number of rulers who came, who conquered, and who also tried to say adopt certain policies, but somehow those policies did not reach the common people. What have I done? Even in this historical writing, I have say used summary, and this kind of summary can be used by novelists also. So what is important is acceleration can be achieved through summary, and summary is talking about details, talking about a particular time period in a matter of a few sentences. Summary. So summary, those sentences are there. In ellipsis, those sentences need not be there. So simply time gap is there. Now, as far as ellipsis is concerned, we can also say that ellipsis can also be hypothetical, it can be implicit, and it can be explicit. So again, there may be different ways how ellipsis operates in a novel. The reader just assumes at some point that okay, this is there. So if we think about this novel Portrait, I gave you the example of this novel Portrait. Here this ellipsis is implicit. You read this and you understand that it is implied there. Hypothetical means something is not worked out at that time, but later you realize that oh, this particular period was left over. So something which is implicit can be very easily understood, but something which is hypothetical, it is understood only later. Maybe the example from A Passage to India can suggest this. Say what happened in Malabar caves, whatever. So maybe it is a kind of hypothetical thing which a reader can construct later. And the third variety, that is explicit. Explicit is where you have something which is definite and you have something which is indefinite. And something which is definite means some years are mentioned. So if I say 20 years from now, this is something very definite. If I say some years later, it is indefinite. And you know that this is also a category that is used in grammar. You say the use of since and the use of for. He has been reading this book since 2 o'clock. This is something definite. He has been reading this book for many hours, indefinite, when he started. So is the case with ellipsis. Years may be mentioned and years may not be mentioned. So only they can be mentioned in an indefinite manner. So duration divides itself into acceleration and deceleration. Acceleration has two forms. One is ellipsis and one is summary. Ellipsis, when something is just left over, elided, and summary, something which is described in a matter of few sentences. Ellipsis can be hypothetical, that means later in the story a character may realize, okay, something was left over. Or it can be implicit, which is immediately recognized. Like, for example, you recognize a time gap in Scarlet Letter and you recognize a time gap in the novel Portrait also. And it can be explicit, where years are mentioned or years may not be mentioned. We can remind ourselves of the role that the reader has to perform. And you know that Barth was saying that reader is important, but death of the writer is the birth of the reader. And Gene also considers reader very important. So if as a reader you do not follow this example of ellipsis, then probably you are missing something. That means here you are generating meaning. As a reader, we are producing meaning. As a reader, we have quite a lot of work to do to unravel that, say what is happening, right? So ellipsis, you understand, and you understand summary. But the other part we have not described much. Deceleration, when something is just stopped. Something is stopped. So far we just talked about enhancing the speed, increasing the speed, acceleration. But now there is another device also, and what is that device? Writers also use this device of deceleration, and they also sometimes stop the speed of something. How is this done? This is done through what is called description, right? Description. If you read a novel and there are 4 pages devoted to the description of a meadow, or the singing of birds, or the leaves on a tree, or the description of a street, what is that? Description. Is the novel progressing? No. In terms of time, I'm talking about time. We are talking about use of time. So is the novel progressing in terms of time? No. It remains where it is. Time stops still at that moment. Similarly, you can see a film where you have the camera capturing in a continuous shot houses, trees, so many other things. That is also something which stops the action. Stops the action for a while. Although it is used to provide a kind of setting, to create a kind of ambience. But as far as time is concerned, this stops the action. And one very interesting example or perfect example of stopping the action is talking about a scene. That means in a novel, usually scene has a very important role to play. Where you have a scene, you have a discussion between two persons, or you have a conversation between different persons. When you have a conversation where number of participants are taking part, it means reading of this conversation will consume the same amount of time as is the time which participants spend in that conversation. Are you getting me? The same amount of time, Hassan, which we spend. So, for example, if there is a conversation and there are different people talking and they are engaged maybe in some kind of gossip or some kind of meaningful exchange, but they spend about an hour in that conversation. Now, if that entire scene is, if that entire conversation is also presented in the form of words, then it will have the same amount of time roughly. So this also stops the action. So what we see, that duration means how time is treated in a novel. There is acceleration, there is deceleration. And here also we can take an example from Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, where you have that Christmas dinner scene. And in that Christmas dinner scene, you see Mr. Casey is there, Aunt Dante is there, Stephen is following that, and that entire conversation takes place before the dinner starts. So maybe an hour or so would be devoted to that conversation, and maybe an hour or so, or roughly the same amount of time will be consumed in reading that scene because it is in the form of dialogues. So scene is also an example of deceleration, just as say description is an example of deceleration. So to just repeat, we talked about 5 important categories that Gerald Gine has introduced: order, duration, frequency, mood, and voice. Order, duration, frequency, mood, and voice. And we see that how all these categories are so important to understand novels, to understand films, to understand other narratives. Maybe I'll stop at this particular point. I'll say hear what you have to say, and we meet tomorrow again at 12 o'clock. So just unmute yourself, and maybe somebody who has not spoken so far can speak, right? Alia, are you there? Are you there, Alia?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Alia, go
Yes,
ahead.
sir.
Where are you, Alia, these days?
Sir, I am at home.
Okay, at home in where?
Yes.
Where?
In
Aligarh?
Muradabad.
In Moradabad.
No,
Okay,
no,
good.
in Muradabad. Yes, sir.
Okay.
S- Sir,
Are you following? Are you
what?
following the discussion?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Sir, it was nice. Yes, I followed the entire discussion.
Hmm.
It was very good.
Okay.
Sir, here basically we came to know about the similarity between the Barth as well as Gerald Gene, on the line that they both are more authorized toward the role of a reader.
Mm-hmm.
This is the first point.
Mm-hmm.
Second point is Gerald Gine, he was more of his own time, and Rola Barth, he was explorative in nature and contemporary in approach. And third point that I realize is Rola Barth, he can be a man who can be read by anybody and everybody, meant for everybody, because he touched all the points that are because he was more into reader approach. So that's why he has written keeping in mind the readers, the areas of readers also. Whereas Jinal he was very specific to his work, so he confined his areas to his work. Although the role is significant, but his area is limited to his work. Another point is we don't find much terminologies in Rola Barth.
He gave the certain ideas, but terminology is more confined to Geraldine, and his division of any fiction or narrative